Hi, my name is Sam Husseini. Is this on? My name is Sam Husseini. I'm a journalist for a number of outlets, but I want to ask a question as the founder of VotePact.org. Many of you have talked about Declaration of Independence, and some people as individuals can do that. But the reality is that many people are tending towards voting for McCain because they don't want Obama and voting for Obama because they don't want McCain. It's a trap that many people are in. And what we're advocating at VotePact.org is that people who know each other, husbands and wives, neighbors, brothers and sisters, coworkers, debate partners, team up as in pairs and siphon off votes in pairs from the two major parties and both vote for the third party of their choice. They can vote for the same third party or independent candidate, or they can vote for two different ones. They don't even have to decide at this point who they want to vote for. They just, a McCain-leading person and an Obama-leading person to both, by joining together, voting fearlessly for a third party of their choice. Thank you. I'd like the reaction of each of the candidates to that proposal. Thank you.
I think any construct that encourages people to vote their values is an appropriate one. However, what has not been mentioned this morning and has rarely been mentioned throughout this presidential election season is the issue of election integrity. And unfortunately, what we have are problems that have been compounded. Problems from 2000, again in 2004, and now in 2008. Different problems, unresolved problems, while the congressional majority, the Democratic majority in the Congress had the opportunity to address these issues, they have not done so. So for example, for those of you who are not familiar with the film American Blackout, it methodologically demonstrates how the election in 2000 and then again in 2004, how those two presidential elections were stolen, and the use of certain political constructs in order to disfranchise certain populations. Now, aside from the fact that we don't have election integrity or didn't have it in 2000, where 1 million black people went to the polls and they voted, but their votes were not even counted. And so we should never forget the fact that there was massive disfranchisement, 1 million blacks alone whose votes were not counted, and yet there are some who would like to talk about stealing elections. Basically, there has to be election integrity. Secondly, in the 2004 election, again, what you see is a situation with the purposeful manipulation of electronic voting machines. Aside from the fact that the electronic voting machines have their inherent problems that have not been resolved from their introduction in 2000. Now in 2008, we have the voter ID laws that have been passed that basically create a two-tiered election system in this country. One for those who show up at the polls on election day with certain sets of requirements, and then yet another less stringent set of requirements for those who mail in their ballots. And then, of course, we have the voter caging. And the voter caging also targets certain populations of voters. So therefore, we've got severe problems with respect to election integrity, and those need to be addressed in the system and by those who are campaigning in it as well.
Look, Pat Buchanan was right a few years back when he said that we don't have two parties in Washington, D.C. We have two wings of the same bird of prey. And that is exactly where we are in our country. And this is where I come from, the Christian conservative wing of the Republican Party, if you want to categorize it that way. This is what so many of my evangelical brothers and sisters just cannot and have not figured out. They really still labor under this belief, as do many on the other side of the aisle as well, that there is some kind of distinguishable difference between these two parties, that there really is such a thing as a lesser of two evils. But really there's not. As one friend of mine said, we're not faced with a choice between a lesser of two evils. We're faced with a choice of the evil of two lessers. And that's really where we are today in America, because both of these parties are taking America in an evil direction. I mentioned a minute ago in my address to you that when I become president, the New World Order comes crashing down. The thing that nobody wants to talk about, the third rail in politics, is the manufacturing of this New World Order that we first heard Bush 1 talk about whenever he was president back in the late 80s, but ever since has become pretty much the mantra and the dogma of Washington politics. I don't know whether you have read Mr. McCain's speech before the Hoover Institution here just a few months ago, when he talked about what he's going to do within the first year after he becomes president in creating a brand new League of Democracies. If you have not read this, you need to go Google it up and read it for yourself. This is the United Nations on steroids. We are talking about organizations, international globalist entities that literally are usurping the authority, the sovereignty, and the independence of the United States of America. I hear John McCain talking all over the place about how that we are an interdependent nation. He uses that word all over the place. Well, ladies and gentlemen, when our founding fathers signed that great document that we've heard about this morning, it was not the Declaration of Interdependence, it was the Declaration of Independence. We are an independent, sovereign state, and yet we have forces in Washington, D.C. today from both parties that want to merge America into this international globalist order in which constitutional government will not exist. And I think one of the things that all of us on this platform are sensing, and I think one of the things that Ron Paul is sensing, that causes him to do what he's doing, that causes him to go to the effort that he's gone to, extraordinary effort, to bring this group together and to bring you all together in all this entire campaign. The reason is because we all sense that if we do not address these fundamental principles that are being sacrificed by these two major parties here in the very near future, we're not going to have to worry about any of it, because the freedoms and the independence and the constitutional form of government that we've enjoyed will no longer exist. We are fighting for the preservation of our very form of government. That's why what Ron Paul is doing is so important, and that's why we on the stage are here this morning.